from the National News Studio, Sri Lanka.
A very good evening and a warm welcome to National News Broadcast. I'm Vidushni Sadish Kumar, together with Owen Hettiarachchi.
Consumer Affairs Authority says no risk over a wheat flour shortage. Bakery owners face difficulties over a wheat flour price hike. Attention to increase the fuel quota for professional three-wheel drivers. A notable decline in trade deficit for the month of July this year. United National Party celebrates its 76th anniversary. Floods in many areas with heavy showers. Landslide risk in 8 districts. All authorities informed on potential disaster risk preparations. A series of programs lined up to mark the 70th anniversary of Sri Lanka-Japan diplomatic relations. Justice Minister says the 22nd Constitutional Amendment will be enacted adhering to proposed revisions in the Supreme Court determination. 6 killed in a suicide bomb attack in the Russian embassy in Kabul. Now on to those and more stories in detail. On today's top story, Consumer Affairs Authority says that sufficient quantities of Sri Lankan flour are available in the country at present.
Well, the chairman of the authority, Shantha Nirala, said that this was revealed during a meeting held with Minister Nalin Fernando recently. Therefore, he said that unnecessary fear should not be inflicted over the availability of wheat flour in future. Chairman of the Consumer Affairs Authority, Shantha Nirala, said that a meeting was held with the Trade Minister regarding wheat flour recently. He said it was revealed during the meeting that sufficient quantities of wheat flour are available at present and unnecessary fear should not be inflicted over a shortage. He said that the authority will take necessary measures to intervene and distribute necessary stocks to the market. Bakery owners and restaurant owners have claimed that they have faced with severe difficulties at present due to the price hike in wheat flour. Traders in the meantime said that they are unable to sell the existing wheat flour products following the price hike. Meanwhile, representatives of several companies handed over a letter indicating the failure of Love's Gas from reducing its prices compared to the recent price reduction of Litro Gas. Meanwhile, a silent protest was organized by Professional Three-Wheel Association in front of the Ministry of Power and Energy, demanding to increase the fuel quota for three-wheeler drivers. In a statement, the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation said reports claiming that nearly 300 fuel stations have been closed due to payment issues. They're completely false. The Ceylon Petroleum Corporation said that the period to settle payments had been extended until 10:30 a.m. from yesterday, and an agreement was reached private petroleum tankers owners to distribute fuel without delay and shortage. Steps have also been taken to fully operate the Kolonnawa and Muthurajawala terminals belonging to the Ceylon Petroleum Storage Terminals Limited. The statement has further indicated that a decision has been reached to resume the Sapagaskanda refinery operations and distribute fuel accordingly. Distribution of fuel from Kurunagala storage complex belonging to CPC is successfully underway. Accordingly, around 600,000 litres of diesel and petrol each are being distributed from the complex on the daily basis. The issuance of fuel for farmers in Polonnaru district for paddy harvesting has commenced.
Earnings from exports increased in July while import expenditure declined for the 5th consecutive month on a year-to-year basis.
The notable decline in import expenditure in July reflected the impact of several moderation of activity amidst forex liquidity strains in the banking system. The policy measures to curtail non-urgent import expenditure also helped to contain import demand pressures. As a result, the trade deficit recorded a notable contraction in July over the year, thereby easing stresses in the domestic foreign exchange market. Workers' remittances increased marginally in July 2022 compared to last month and remained in excess of the trade deficit, thereby supporting the forex liquidity conditions under severe balance of payments pressures. Earnings from tourism recorded an increase in July on the low base. An increase in earnings was observed in industrial exports, while a decline was recorded in agricultural and mineral exports. Foreign investment in the government securities market and the Colombo Stock Exchange recorded a marginal net inflow during July. The central bank continued to provide forex liquidity to finance essential imports, exhausting the usable level of gross official reserves. Meanwhile, the weighted average spot exchange rate in the interbank market remained around 361 rupees per US dollar during the month.
A committee has been appointed to ensure the removal of scrap material from government institutions as per the proposal of the Interim Budget 2022. President Secretary Saman Ekanaika has appointed the committee for the purpose of supervising and implementing the entire process of the disposal of scrap metal accumulated in the public sector institutions. The chairperson of the committee is Controller General of General Treasury Ramya Kanti. The rest of the committee is comprised of Additional Director General, Department of Public Finances, S.U. Chandrakumaran, and Additional Director General, Department of Public Enterprises, J.M.S.N. Jayasinghe. It has also been noted that due to the non-disposal of scrap material on time, the government is losing a considerable amount of revenue. Further, the spaces in the office premises, government buildings are also unnecessarily obstructed and occupied due to the filling up of such material. President Secretary therefore has noted that it is required to dispose of such material expeditiously. Accordingly, the committee has been tasked with completing the disposal procedure on or before the December 5th of this year.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe emphasizes the need of the assistance from all stakeholders to free the country from the prevailing crisis. The President pointed out that it is the duty of all citizens who care for the nation. The President made these remarks while addressing the 76th anniversary of the United National Party held in Colombo today. President Ranil Wickremesinghe said that his administration is a unity government comprised of parliamentarians from Sri Lanka, Podujana Peramuna and from various other parties. He said that the country is faced with a severe crisis situation. He pointed out the need to find solutions for the economic collapse in the country, and he became the president under such circumstances. He pointed out that he cannot make appointments unlike his predecessors. President Wickremesinghe said that the people in the country are under tremendous pressure and there are segments in the society who are unable to suffice a 3-meal and unemployed. Therefore, he emphasized that all stakeholders should come together to rebuild the nation together. He said that the focus should be on the country's economy. He added that the economy can be pushed forward with or without limitations on fuel, fertilizer and seeds for agriculture. The President said that efforts of the government are continuing as they have managed to obtain financial assistance from the IMF. He pointed out the need to receive relief from the debt-owned countries. He said that necessary fuel, fertilizer and seeds required for Maha season will be provided through the government with the hope to achieve the largest harvest in history.
Lanka Podujana Peramuna තවත් මන්ත්‍රීවරු ගණනාවක පක්ෂවල සහයෝගය එක්ක මේ ආණ්ඩුව ගෙනියන්නේ. ඇයි මෙහෙම ගෙනියන්නේ? අද අපි විශාල අර්බුදයකට මුහුණ දීලා තියෙනවා. මං හිතන්නේ මේ රටේ ඉතිහාසයේ ඊට ඉස්සෙල්ලා මෙහෙම අර්බුදයක් තිබුණා කියලා. ආර්ථිකය කඩා වැටෙන්නේ.
The Department of Irrigation has issued warnings for a large-scale flood situation in many low-lying areas in several divisional secretariat divisions in Maha Basin. The statement has been issued following an analysis conducted on the water levels in the rivers maintained by the department. The warning for a severe flood situation has been issued for low-lying areas in Alava, Diulapitiya, Mirigama, Pannala, Vendapur, Nigambo, Khatana, Narammala and Dankotua divisional secretariat divisions. The Irrigation Department has requested the residents and motorists to be cautious and protect their lives and properties. The Met Department has indicated that the prevailing showery condition is expected to recede today. Showers are expected to occur at times in the western, Sabaragamuwa and northwestern provinces and in Kandy, Nuwara, Galle and Mathura districts. Very heavy showers are also expected to occur in the northern and north-central provinces. Showers or thunder showers will occur in Uva and eastern provinces during the evening or night. Strong winds of around 50 km per hour can be expected at times over western slopes of the central hills. The Nuwara District Disaster Management Unit has indicated that several sluice gates in Lakshapana Canyon and Upper Kotmale Reservoir have been opened since morning. Residents in the river banks of the below the Kotmale Oya have been warned over the automatic opening of the sluice gates of the Upper Kotmale Reservoirs if the reservoir and the surrounding catchments receive rainfall continuously. The Castley and Mausakale reservoirs are also spill level at present. 5 sluice gates of the Pologal Reservoir has been opened. The engineer in charge of the reservoir has warned the residents in the low-lying areas to be cautious of the released water from the reservoir. 2 sluice gates of the Kukuleganga Reservoir has been opened. As a result, reports that indicated that low-lying areas and several roads in Bulat Sinhala area have been inundated. National Building Research Organisation has issued a landslide warning for Colombo, Kaluthara, Kandy, Matale and Nuwara, Kagala, Ratnapura and Kurunegala districts. Accordingly, they have requested the people in these areas to be cautious. All district secretariats have been informed to make necessary preparations to face the possible disaster situations. On instruction of President Ranil Wickremesinghe, Secretary to the President, Saman Naika has instructed Secretary to the Ministry of Public Administration, Home Affairs, Provincial Councils, Local Government to issue a direct order to the relevant ministries and departments. The 117 hotline will be operational around the clock, while steps have also been taken to keep the National Disaster Relief Services Centre operational 24 hours a day, the Disaster Management Centre has stated. Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena has instructed the Secretary of the Ministry of Public Administration to take the necessary action to provide prompt relief for issues faced by the people amidst the heavy rainfall. Accordingly, Secretary to the Public Administration Ministry Priyantha Maya Dunne has instructed all district secretaries to provide necessary relief for the people while making necessary preparations to face possible disaster situations. This year, the bilateral relations between Sri Lanka and Japan complete 70 years.
The speech made by former President late J.R. Jayawardena addressing the San Francisco summit, which paved the path for bilateral relations between the nations, is considered a major milestone in the history of foreign relations in Sri Lanka. The Treaty of San Francisco, also called the Treaty of Peace with Japan, re-established relations between Japan and the Allied powers by ending the legal state of war and providing for redress for hostile actions up to and including World War II. Sri Lanka was one of the 9 Asian countries that participated in the San Francisco Peace Conference in Japan, which was held in September 1951. The treaty ended Japan's role as an imperial power, allocated compensation to allied nations and former prisoners of war who had suffered Japanese war crimes during World War II. A major player in providing support for a post-war free Japan was delegation from Sri Lanka. Former President and then Finance Minister late J.R. Jayawardena spoke in defense of a free Japan and informed the conference of Sri Lanka's refusal to accept the payment of reparations that would harm Japan's economy. In the words of the Lord Buddha, whose message, "Hatred ceases not by hatred but by love," urged the international community to allow Japan to reconnect with the rest of the world in a peaceful manner. This became one of the most influential factors for a free Japan to receive many reliefs from the international community. Sri Lanka and Japan established diplomatic relations shortly after the signing of the peace treaty. A Japanese mission was set up in Colombo in February 1952, and in May 1953, Sri Lanka established a legation in Tokyo. This year marked the 70th anniversary of the re-establishment of the diplomatic relations between the two countries. Japan mostly supports Sri Lanka through its major foreign aid institutions, JICA and JBIC, in various development projects in Sri Lanka, and has funded and aided various development projects. Japan also gifted the Sri Jayawardenapura General Hospital, Peradina Teaching Hospital, Parliamentary Complex, ports and airport modernization projects, and Rupavahini Corporation. A special walk in commemoration of the 70th anniversary of friendly Japan-Sri Lanka diplomatic relations was commenced from the National Youth Services Council in Maharagama today. The walk was organized to extend gratitude to Japan for gifting institutions such as the National Youth Services Council, National Educational Institute, Sri Jayawardhanapura Hospital and Sri Lanka Rupavahini Corporation. Reminiscing the speech made by late Jayawardena on behalf of a free Japan at the San Francisco Peace Summit in 1959, a special commemorative program was held at the Sri Lanka Rupavahini Corporation premises today.
1951 සැප්තැම්බර් මාසේ 8 වෙනිදා සැන් ෆ්‍රැන්සිස්කෝ මේ ලෝක නායකයින් සහභාගී වුණු සමුළුව ජපානයටම වෙන්න උණු සමුළුවක්. ජපානයේ ගැනම කතා කරපු සමුළුවක්. ඒ නිසා කවුරුත් මොකද්ද වෙන්නේ කියන එක පිළිබඳව බලාගෙන හිටියා. ඒ බලාගෙන හිටපු බොහෝ දෙනා අතරේ විවිධ කතා අතරේ අපේ නායකයා එදා මුළු මහත් ලෝකෙම ජපානය වෙනුවෙන් අවදි කළා.
Ladies and gentlemen, the commemoration speech, which brought in a new light and awakening, also brought in a lot of togetherness and unity, reminded the entire world that we need to stand united together. We'd like to very warmly invite President Ranil Wickremesinghe to join us on our little platform, as well as the ambassador, the Embassy of Japan in Sri Lanka, Mizukoshi Hideki, Your Excellency. A moving address advocating the sovereignty of Japan that was given at the San Francisco conference by the former President J.R. Jayawardena, as it remains in Japan's hearts, forever in the minds of people. Our discussion today revolves around asking people how we've been touched by this message and the kind of legacy that has left upon different people. And my first question is to the President. Sir, from the late great J.R. Jayawardena, what was your favorite thing that you took from him?
He was a master of politics, and I learned from him.
Brilliant. And the continuity, what inspired you to take on the challenge even further?
Well, he taught me when there's a challenge and there's opportunity, make use of it.
Brilliant. And now my next question is to our ambassador. 70 years of friendship with Sri Lanka and Japan, a beautiful bond that we've had. And 71 years now at the Peace Congress that the late great J.R. Jayawardena did mention a very moving message. So what do you feel about the essence of today's event?
First of all, thank you very much for this program. It's an honor that I have a chance to be here with all the Sri Lankan people to celebrate this peace conference in San Francisco. For Japanese people, there was nothing more important than this peace conference at the time. When Japan's destiny was dependent on this conference. The president said J.R. Jayawardena was master of politics, but I think he was also a master of diplomacy. And well, he made such a convincing speech that at the time divided international community was united, guided by his very convincing speech. And why could he could make that speech? Because he was observing the international relations. He was participating in Colombo Conference, which was previously held, and he knew the opinions of the Asians. And also he visited Japan before the conference, and he had discussed with the Prime Minister at the time, Mr. Shigeru Yoshida, and also he discussed with many Japanese people, many common people. So that was why he could make such a convincing speech at the peace conference. And, J.R. Jayawardena, a young politician from a country which was little known to Japanese at the time. He made such an important role in this conference. So after the conference, he was the most known Sri Lankan for all the Japanese, and he still is. That's why Japan had made such a contribution Japan made. Japan and Sri Lanka had cooperated, which has resulted in many projects like, as mentioned in the video, the Sri Jaya General Hospital and this Rupavahini Corporation and National Youth Center, National Youth Council, with the young people of the National Youth Council. I did a march this morning, and I was very impressed that so many Sri Lankan people still celebrate these occasions.
I think it has inspired a lot of people in valuing leaders of tomorrow and how we can take values or characteristics from individuals as that. Thank you, Your Excellency. Mr. President, Japan has always been very, very supportive, especially in this whole point of our challenging times, even when the world is going through different phases of life. How do you see Japan helping, assisting us at this moment?
As His Excellency the Ambassador said, this is a very old relationship. After the war was over and the San Francisco Peace Treaty was signed, unlike in the case of Germany, originally when all four powers signed, the Soviet Union not willing to sign it. So when you went to San Francisco, there has to be an Asian country that was going to second it. Philippines are not willing to do it. India also didn't want to do it. And actually Sri Lanka stepped forward. Both President Jayawardena, who was the minister, and also Mr. D.S. Senanayake, who was the Prime Minister. So he went ahead and he made this brilliant speech. But that was not the end of it. Then we had to, in Parliament, we had to pass the peace treaty as an act of Parliament. And the whole opposition, mainly the left opposition, was against it. They said there should be no peace treaty with Japan. Japan started the war. And if Japan was going to, if there was going to be a peace treaty, it is really, they should have Russia in it. So you find Dr. N.M. Pera, Peter Kenneman, Sundaralingam, all speaking. And it was Mr. D.S. Senanayake who defended it. This actually was the last speech he made on 29th of February because Parliament didn't meet. And he fell off the horse and he died. And I'd just like to point out his last part of what he said. Actually, we have made a contribution in bringing about this treaty. And that is a thing of which we should be proud. I do not want to say anything more. I think this is the first opportunity that Japan is getting to establish herself. It may be that they have done a lot of wrong to the world, but we should not harbor anger and try to keep these people down. And then he also paid a compliment to President Jayawardena. He said this way, one thing they want to know, talking in the opposition, they want to know is why our representative at San Francisco did not try to improve the terms of the treaty. I know that is a game Russia tried to play. But my good friend, the finance minister, resisted it. And he was able to see that Russia's game did not succeed. I think if we can congratulate ourselves, we should do so on being a party to bring about this peace treaty. And further, we can congratulate ourselves that we had a representative with a backbone who made it clear that we are not going to yield to the game played by the Russians. That itself showed the geopolitics of it. And Sri Lanka stood firm. So that friendship has continued between Sri Lanka and Japan.
And that diplomacy continues in the year coming. And Your Excellency, tell us about our friendship beyond this. What's our plan?
President's nephew is the current president. I think, and hearing the president's words, I'm quite convinced that this relationship that former President Jayawardena has made, I think it will surely continue. And I am very honored to be here in Sri Lanka at this time. And I feel a very historic obligation to make this bond stronger.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your kind words. Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you to the President as well. And
Those visuals coming to you from a special program from earlier this evening. Meanwhile, the Cabinet of Ministers has approved the proposal to prepare a preliminary report for a comprehensive legal framework on national security. The combined proposal presented by President Ranil Wickremesinghe, Ministers Vijay Rajapaksa and Ali Sabre. A comprehensive national security legal framework to address the weaknesses of the existing anti-terrorism laws, to face such acts, to enforce the law, to further strengthen investigative and monitoring tools has been identified, to introduce the provisions to deal with new dimensions of terrorism and violent extremism. Accordingly, the proposal was furnished to appoint a committee headed by the Secretary to the Ministry of Justice, Prison Affairs and Constitutional Reforms for preparing a preliminary draft for a comprehensive legal framework on national security, taking into account the relevant international standards and recommendations on protection of human rights and paying attention to all relevant issues. The Cabinet of Ministers approved the proposal presented by Prime Minister to implement the recommendations made by the said committee regarding the granting of no-play leave up to a maximum period of 5 years. As per the Cabinet decision dated June 13th, the committee consisting of senior officers was appointed to make a recommendation regarding the provision of local leave for a pension-owning government officer without causing any prejudice to the seniority. The Cabinet of Ministers granted approval for the resolution furnished by the President to establish a public entrepreneurship restructuring unit under the Ministry of Finance in order to guide and assist necessary in regard to restructuring the public enterprises. The objective is to identify the methods for minimizing financial burden shouldered by the General Treasury, as well as to enhance the total performance of the public entrepreneurship. The performance of the commercial enterprises owned by the government is not satisfactory since a long time, and some of those enterprises are continuously running at a loss. Since this has alarmed the General Treasury, causing extreme pressure, a remedial mechanism should be introduced for maintaining such enterprises more efficiently and productively. The Cabinet of Ministers granted approval for the resolution furnished by the President to establish a public-private partnership national agency under the Ministry of Finance. The agency expected to enable taking necessary measures required for encouraging investments by furnishing proposals for identification of obstacles and issues confronted by investors when investing within Sri Lanka and solving them, as well as identification and implementing public-private partnership projects within a specific time period.
The spouse and 2 children of former MP late Amarakirti Athukorala met with President Ranil Wickremesinghe yesterday.
MP Amarakirti Athukorala was assaulted and killed by a mob in Nitambur town on July 9th. The meeting was held at the President's office. Extending his deepest condolence over the incident, President requested to inform him of any support or need, including education of the children. The President also said that he personally or through the government will provide necessary assistance required for the future of the children and well-being of the family. Meanwhile, the President handed over financial assistance through the Police Assistance Fund for the personal security of late Amarakirti Athukorala, Police Sergeant Jayantha Gunawardena, who was also deceased from the incident.
The determination of the Supreme Court in respect of the 22nd Amendment to the Constitution Bill was tabled in the Parliament today. The determination indicated that several provisions in the bill are inconsistent with the Constitution. At the beginning of the parliamentary proceedings, the Speaker tabled the determination of the Supreme Court in respect of the 22nd Amendment to the Constitution Bill. The Speaker said that several provisions in the amendment bill are consistent with the Constitution, while certain provisions are inconsistent with the Constitution, the Supreme Court determination has indicated that the inconsistent provisions should be enacted with a special parliamentary majority and a referendum. Meanwhile, the opposition leader and several other parliamentarians requested the government to table the agreement reached with the International Monetary Fund in the parliament. Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa urged the government to table the IMF agreement in the parliament and to unveil the agreement for people to comprehend its content. Minister Susil Premajayanta said that the President will be briefed over the request made by the opposition leader. MP Dr. Harsha De Silva said that the parliamentary consent should be obtained if certain agreements have been reached with the IMF at a time when the country has declared bankruptcy.
A special lottery ticket, Valampuri, has been introduced by the Development Lottery Board on behalf of the people in the northeast areas. The lottery ticket was issued to market today under the patronage of Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of the Development Lottery Board, Ajit Gunaratna Naragala. Cash prizes up to 2 million rupees will be extended through the Valampuri lottery ticket. The special Valampuri lottery draw will be held on October 28th. We'll be back with foreign news after a short break.
හොඳම දේ විශ්වාසයෙන් ට්‍රීට් කරන්න. Prima Treats. Life is a treat.
Now on to foreign news. At least 6 people have been killed in a suicide bombing attack near the entrance of the Russian embassy in Kabul, Afghan officials have stated. The dead, including 2 employees of the embassy, the Russian Foreign Ministry said yesterday. The ministry did not offer any details as to who the staff members were or how they died. Kabul police said that 4 others were killed were Afghan civilians. They also said the attacker was shot dead by armed guards as he approached the embassy gate in Darul Iman area in the southwest of Kabul. It was not immediately clear if the attacker was able to set off the blast before being shot or if the gunfire detonated the explosives. Meanwhile, foreign media reported that the Islamic State group has claimed responsibility for the attack.
Well, on to your sports update, things with netball. Sri Lanka secures its first win in the second round of the Asian Netball Championship and they won against Malaysia.
The tournament was held in Singapore. This is the first match that Sri Lanka faced in the second round of the tournament. Following a tight battle between the sides, Sri Lanka managed to secure the victory against Malaysia with 55 points to 53. Sri Lanka is expected to compete against Singapore tomorrow. The Sri Lankan team taking part in the Road Safety World Series Legends Cricket Tournament left the island yesterday and today in 2 groups. The first match will be played on the 11th against Australia Legends. The Sri Lankan Legends team is captained by former captain T.M. Dilshan. The tournament will be live telecast on ChannelEye. The Under-17 South Asian Football Championship was commenced yesterday at the racecourse grounds. India secured the 3-0 victory against Bhutan in the opening match. Sri Lanka competed against Bangladesh and faced a defeat of 5-0.
Well, that's it for tonight's news. Have a good night.
Good night.